Hello again and welcome to The Luxury Choice, a B2B sales and business podcast brought to you by the training team at George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer at George James and I'm also the host and producer of this podcast. And today I have no less than 4 other people on the pod. So we have 5 with us today. So it's going to be interesting. I've got 3 members of the training team and we also have a special guest. So Jonathan Zazinski, hi, how are you? Good. Welcome. Jane Green, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm here. Good, thank you.
Great. And we have Pascal Lefloc also in France. How are you, Pascal?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And today we also have a special guest who's been on the podcast before, actually, Manel Berga. Manel, how are you, sir?
Thank you for having me here. Thank you. And very glad to come back.
Great to have you back. So for the people who didn't catch the podcast you were on, I think it would be about 18 months ago, do you want to briefly introduce yourself, what it is you do, where you're based, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So I'm a Catalan living in Copenhagen, Denmark, since 5 years. And I've spent most of my career building commercial excellence capabilities from scratch in usually growth-oriented environments, typically in B2B, human health, science-driven industries. And in many of these environments, I found myself and my team pioneering initiatives to generate pipeline and accelerate growth that were at the intersection of marketing and sales. So often it was too early in the funnel for sales to prioritize, but at the same time, it was too close to real concrete opportunities and customers for marketing to fully own. So I have been moving in this space for the last almost 20 years.
Fantastic. A key place to be that interface between marketing and sales, basically, yeah. Marketing people would say sales is a branch of marketing and probably salespeople would say marketing is a branch of sales, but you're a good example of both. So fantastic that you're here today and I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation with you along as well. So the topic today is how can we make cold calling warmer? Now, cold calling is inevitably a part of sales that most people, with a few exceptions, most people don't enjoy, don't look forward to it. I've been doing it for 30 years and I'd be lying to say if I said I enjoy doing it, I look forward to doing it. But I think it is still a key part of a salesperson's role and in a technical B2B role particularly. And, saying that it's dead, it doesn't work, I think, well, we'll cover this, I'm sure, but I don't think it's an option just to pass on that. So cold calling, why do people hate cold calling, first of all? Why do people hate cold calling, first of all?
Definitely because they presume nobody will pick up and the big E of rejection, isn't it? It's that part that we just don't like somebody to say no. And also we feel it's a bit of a waste of time if people don't pick up.
Yeah. Rejection is something none of us like, is it? But it's part of the job, isn't it, really? You did some training last week, I think, where you had some good examples of doing cold calling live in the flesh, didn't you?
Yeah. So I was a kickoff to the start of a prospecting week with a company, an amazing group of people. And then I did the final day, sort of joined their prospecting scrum every 4 o'clock.
I love that. Prospecting scrum. That's
throughout
great.
the week, and then went back up on a Friday. And they were incredible. So there's a research side, but they did a lot of calls. They were getting about over a 25% pickup rate.
Wow.
And actually over a 25% follow-up sort of hit rate as well. So that was
good rates, Jane.
It is.
Really, really good rates. Very intentional time. And they did a lot of time to go from actually how do you make it less cold? So excited
we'll
to
explore
talk
that
about
more
this.
during the call, I'm sure. So how can we make cold calling less painful, first of all? Because it is.
Well, it's funny, Steve, when you said it's painful, it's things that I used to love it.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I used to love just going into an unknown lab and just trying to sell something, right? But I will say, in today's technological environment, there is no way a cold call should be like what I used to do, which is walk in blind. It needs to be warmed up.
Okay.
There's so many tools around LinkedIn, AI, where you can even just stand outside of a lab, read a few posters, have AI give you a summary of the poster, where you are going into that lab warmed up.
Right.
You know something. You can connect with them, personalize it, some kind of value add, right? And again, to me, it's got to be a tool in the sales rep's toolkit, but it's exactly what we're talking about today. How do you make cold calling warm, right?
Okay.
Warming it is the key to it being successful. It's not going to be, you're not going to be walking lab to lab to lab to lab to lab right now, just blind. You should be having a plan and figuring out what's going on with these things with all the tools that we have at our disposal today.
Go ahead, Manel. Yeah.
And I was going to say, the concept of calling and the technology has evolved in the last 15, 20 plus years. I remember 15 years ago, my boss called me at any time during the work hours and sometimes after if the thing was urgent. Nowadays, my boss writes to me asking me permission if he wants, if he can call me. Manel, can you talk? Of course I can talk. I'm working for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even what we were expecting and the way we use technology nowadays changed a lot. And frankly, nobody almost calls anybody else. Cell phones, which is, of course, the telephone we have, sometimes are in my kids' hands because they are watching a video I'm showing them. So it might seem much more intrusive versus what it used to be.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So things change as well.
Yeah. But it's a key part of the role, isn't it? Yeah.
Manel brings up a great point, right? This is a generational change now because I look at my nieces and my nephews. If I call them, they immediately think something's wrong. What's wrong? Why are you calling me, Uncle John? And then now I do exactly what Manel's boss does where, hey, you free for a few seconds, want to chat, right? I text them first so that I can get back to it. And I just think that that's the general shift of calling.
Yeah.
But again, even if we're doing that, we still have to do some of the prep and the work and figuring out how do we personalize, how do we add value when we are communicating with some of our potential customers.
So let's explore this preparation then, Pascal. Yeah, what kind of things would you think we need to prepare if we're going to make more successful on cold calling?
Yeah, actually, back to what Jonathan said, all tools being available, and that's great. At the same time, it sounds that there are more barriers, meaning that will be in a position to reach out because the customer, the prospect you want to discuss with, you have to become more prepared to make the connection warmer. First of all, instead of just calling directly someone, what about using LinkedIn to start a connection? Okay. And when you think about LinkedIn, same preparation. What sort of message I would like to provide or send your prospect, what sort of, let's say, key idea or key thoughts I could share so that it brings interest and motivates the other to answer you or to accept the connection. And then when a connection is made, then you can think about calling the customer, So it's sort of a stepwise process. But whatever the media you are using, I think that you have to generate interest and to really make the interaction very personalized.
Absolutely. Now, the LinkedIn thing is one of my favorite topics, but I don't want to make this whole podcast all about LinkedIn. But just to recap on what you said or to revisit what you said, really, and I'd welcome everybody's thoughts on this, really. So if I'm going to make a cold call to one of you guys, what you're suggesting, Pascal, and I'm sure I agree with this, is that we would find the person on LinkedIn first and get connected with them first before we try and make a cold call. Is that the approach we're suggesting?
I think it's also by any means possible.
Okay.
Use whatever tool there is available to us. And that's one of we've talked about, the changes and the shift in the way that cold call used to happen, or the way people approach the thought of actually ringing up. Would people answer? Would they want a bit of a text beforehand? Actually, we've never had so many tools available to us to be able to reach out to people.
Yeah.
So I think it's by making sure we access all options, So LinkedIn is a great way of connecting with people because normally people we all do, I think we do, yes, pictures of ourselves, a little bit of a bio. All of a sudden, you see a real person.
Most people are on LinkedIn.
You see, Jane, and this is the kind of point that you and Pascal are both kind of, and I'd love to hear, Manel's kind of take on this as a lead generation specialist, is that we have all these tools to connect, right?
Yeah.
It's how you connect. So Pascal brought it up. Personalize, right?
Yes.
So to me, it's three things: personalize, value add, call to action, right? Whenever you're doing some kind of calling type activity. But Manel, I'd love to hear from you. Like, obviously, when you do mass reach outs or you do kind of lead gen, how do you personalize? Because I think that really is the key to making that great connection, is that personalization.
Sure. I would say there's a couple of things that come even before a personalization. First of all is the channel.
Yeah.
Steve just said we will not dedicate a full podcast to LinkedIn, which is a pity, but I understand. Fair enough. What I'm trying to say here is that the channel you use conditions the response you get. Sure. You're not wearing the same clothes in all the same rooms in your house. You're not speaking in the same way to everybody during your week. And that's perfectly okay. For example, the telephone number or the job email, I find them highly overvalued. Usually people are not necessarily highly responsive or highly looking forward to see yet another email in their
Absolutely
Outlook inbox.
Absolutely.
What was the last time you received the good news in your job email? I frankly cannot recall because even that spot bonus was communicated by my boss earlier. So usually it's about bad news, work to do, or work email is not really a thing. In my opinion, the same as telephone that can ring in the most unexpected way, usually, of course. And then in the middle of a meeting, a number you don't know, usually it's not somebody with a lot of money to offer you because because a distant relative just passed away. If you know what I mean.
Exactly.
So LinkedIn is very nice in this sense. It's a social network. The permission that I have to connect with you, to write to you, is already there because it's called social network, not don't write to me network. And most of people are in LinkedIn, not only, but as well to find for jobs or just be aware of opportunities. So a new message in LinkedIn could be your next big opportunity. So usually people are much more positive in LinkedIn.
Agreed.
That, and that from my point of view can come even before what I'm going to tell you. The second thing I think comes before whatever you say is you show respect. If, anything that looks like a pre-made, copy-pasted message is lack of respect, as we know. But not only. I brought some real examples of things. Maybe I can, let other people speak and I can talk about them later. I can, but I brought, some material.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Manel brings a great point. It's like, what are people going to react to, right? What are they going? So I think you're spot on with email, right? It's a really tough medium to try to get through and get connections through. But that doesn't mean you don't do it, right? And that doesn't mean you can't be more effective at it. And I think one of the first things that we train to is creative subject lines. What's going to catch my eye? Is it going to be something, again, did it personalize? Did it add a value, or did it have a call to action? Even just in that quick subject line, you're 100% right about copying, pasting, and people can see that right away.
Well, we get them every day. I get one today. Yeah, it's obvious. Just
that's where Jane and Pascal were talking about. That personalization is so key, right? Absolutely. Right off the bat, it's got to. Hey, I saw you went to University of Maryland. So did I. Right? How do you personalize this thing to make that connection warmer? But yeah, I'd love to kind of dive deeper because I'm just very, again, loving kind of your insights into this stuff.
Sure. I give you one example, real example. A few days ago, I received something that starts with, "Hi Manel, St. Patrick's Day is coming. What are your plans for it?" So I'm a Catalan living in Denmark, and with all due respect, I couldn't care less. I understand it's important if you're Irish and so on, but what that could have sound if instead the thing could say something like, "Hi Manel, I hope you could enjoy these last 3 days of good weather in Denmark." Because that I could even know in the weather report.
Yeah,
so
I love it.
I'm writing something, and I can copy paste to all my Danish, this Copenhagen area context. So it's not that much a matter of I need to be, I saw a picture of you and your children and they look very nice. That's not exactly the but it can still be something like, I wrote this thinking in something that might be
Yeah. I see you nodding, Pascal. You agree with this approach?
Definitely. And Manel just referred to what I was thinking about. It can be more specific about how to personalize, meaning that you know better the person you want to reach out. So it goes with looking for information about where the person is located. What is his role? What are the last activities he had, and so on and so on. So anything that this person did quite recent and which is related to his job, his activities, and where there is something that sort of a trigger that you can use to be in touch with.
And this is why I think it's so important People always say to me, I don't have Sales Navigator. And none of this stuff needs Sales Navigator. In fact, I'd suggest we avoid that. If I've found Manel on LinkedIn and then I think he's somebody I'd like to possibly get to know and hopefully get a meeting with, I'm not going to use Sales Navigator. I'm going to find out about him, the kind of things he's talking about on LinkedIn, what he's interested in, and then send him a personalized connection request rather than an email, which is just really another email, really. Yeah.
Because B2B, business to business, is actually P2P, person to person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we receive any message saying, congrats on the acquisition of that company or the launch of new product, okay, yes, maybe the organization I work with, and maybe not that close to my area, by the way, launched this product, acquired another company, which could be bad news for me, by the way, or maybe a lot of work,
Possibly, yeah.
whatever. That is not really related to me. However, in LinkedIn, again, we have all the work history of the person. So work anniversaries, interesting trajectories, common interests, posts that we liked, commented, connections in common. Everything is connected to the person. And of course, we don't talk to accounts. Account-based marketing is not really a nice way of putting it because it's not about accounts, it's context, and it's on marketing, it's sales. So connecting to the person is essential because that person will be the gatekeeper for anything that comes after.
It's a super way of looking at it.
And I really kind of, again, connecting to that person's key, but if we want to flip it to the science sales, right, and life science sales, it's connecting to their work, right, and what their lab does.
Absolutely.
And to me, this is where AI really comes in, right? So LinkedIn's kind of cool. Hey, they went to this university. Hey, they had these publications. But now this is the power of AI. Summarize this journal article for me as a rep at so-and-so company selling these products. Boom.
Wow.
A couple little points, and now you can connect on their work instead of connecting on their comments, their likes, their more of their professional, right? And I really love this from a sales perspective of warming up calls, connecting to their work. And AI is just a fantastic tool to be able to do that.
That's a super idea. I hadn't thought about that at all. And Jane, the work you did with the company last week, I think you were using AI as well as part of that prep for that, what did you call it, a scrum?
Yes. So that was the end of every evening. But I set some case studies or a case study, which was an example to get people thinking outside the box to say, in 30 minutes, what can you find about this particular customer or customer type? So in groups, and of course, we're motivated. So one thing I bring into that, we often work personally and individually, but sometimes when we want to find out a lot more and a lot deeper, we get quite motivated when we can work with other people. So if we need to find out a lot of information and do some research, sometimes partnering up, buddying with people actually takes some of that pressure, gets a little bit of energy within that to be able to do something a little bit more. So, with just a case study to find out who are all the possible contacts and the key stakeholders and what would be really, really relevant. AI is brilliant.
And you even use it to find phone numbers as well, I think, from what you were saying.
Finding phone numbers, finding emails, and it will bring up links in, this person can be found in this place on LinkedIn, and it would reference all of this. We can use all sorts of, research across websites or AI, LinkedIn to actually cover a whole load. So for me, everything we've been talking about is this research, this preparation time.
Exactly.
Which is what we do to get to that place of, this isn't just cold. It's not just a random list that we're trying to attack of people that have got no knowledge of us or we've got no knowledge of them.
No, we're not selling double glazing or something. Oh, this is targeted. No offense to double glazing salespeople listening, but this is targeted. This is sales. Yeah, absolutely.
And as Jonathan said, something that's got value and that will bring a call to action.
Absolutely. Yeah. Manel, you got a point. Yeah.
Yes, because in a B2B business, it's quite rare that the list of potential customers is unlimited.
Absolutely.
Usually we know each other, and especially, of course, in a smaller country. So the ways you have to reach people, and especially the times you have to gain their respect or lose it, are quite limited. And that's one good thing, yet again, about LinkedIn, which is your network stays with you all along your career, and you can follow how people move and people can follow you as well. So this idea of respect for me is really important. It's not that difficult to earn it, but once you lose it, it's as well difficult.
Yeah, great point. Well, one of the things that irritates me when I get approached, as I'm sure we all do, let's say through LinkedIn, pushing too quickly, too early for a meeting. Now, I know salespeople, and we train salespeople to have targets on number of calls per day, per week, or whatever. But it's almost like, hey, I've got a connection. Can I come and sell to you? Am I the only person who finds that annoying? Because I think it happens too quickly. A meeting might be appropriate, but perhaps can we at least find out a bit about each other first before we actually pitch for that meeting? Would that be a better way of warming things up a little bit as well?
Yeah, finding a true connection, isn't it? We talk about connecting, which doesn't mean to say we've actually got much that we understand of each other right now. Yeah. But I think that's the journey. It's the very start of a conversation where we get into a discovery, which isn't about product or service related.
Absolutely.
Often, very specifically, it's about understanding who the other person is and they understanding who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. And there's an iron rule that I use usually in any outbound process, which is what you wouldn't do in a courting, dating, or flirting situation. please avoid doing in a cold calling situation.
Nice to meet you. The bar. Would you like to marry me? No, not quite as quick as that.
Exactly.
Anyway, back to the point of bringing value. I really like the point Jonathan and Jane made about AI, because AI can really consolidate data in just a few seconds, while it took ages to you to get some relevant information. But thanks to this, you have probably information you can use, and then how you can link this to the products, the solutions you can offer.
Absolutely.
And this is where you could easily bring value to a customer or to a prospect,
Yeah.
So for instance, so I can see that you are working on this, let's say, compound or potential new drug. And actually we have products related to drug discovery. And I would be interested to get your idea on discovery could be improved. Not proposing something immediately to be sold to the customer, but get expertise view from this person. So you value the person, you bring value, and then you get a chance to get a meeting.
Yeah. That's a super point, because we're reaching out to scientists who are subject matter experts in their field quite often, really. And we should give them the space and the opportunity to show that, really. Yes, Jonathan, sorry.
No, because it comes back to your original point about, potential annoyance or just being like, why are they asking me for a meeting, right? Now, if they've done the right thing in their message, which is connect with me personally and added us some value, I have no problem with them saying, hey, would you like to meet? It's those 1-2 liners. Hey, I've got this product. Let's meet. Well, okay, we got the value, potential value in the call, but where's the personalization, right?
Exactly.
It's like those are the ones. Again, it's got to have those 3 components to me: the personalized, the value add, and the call to action. And you're right. I don't think you always have to ask for a meeting, but we're sales reps. We should be asking for something if we're making, this kind of connection. And just to kind of back on Jane and Pascal, I recently had a training where we were looking at AI for research, and it's going to make you so much more efficient. Just the amount of information in the little amount of time that you can get from using this to summarize this website, summarize this paper, look at this, look at these journal articles. Can't say that enough. In warming up and just being able to pull out a tidbit that you could connect with a scientist on.
Yeah.
No more. I mean, I remember having to read the whole paper, going through results, methods, and being like, all right, hey, what did they use? Did they use my equipment? Let me, how do I connect? It's very, very cool to see the efficiency gains with this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's that, researching key phrases, isn't it? Using AI on key phrases. So, I mean, a bit off the subject, but it's the same thing, isn't it? You want to find out whether they're using the competition in a certain area, or if a publication is mentioning their words, some key phrases kind of clearly shows you where they're at.
Great point. Yeah. Yes, Manel.
I was going to say, listening to Jonathan, the fact that we have this extraordinary tool that is AI that can process so much information and then deliver the brief makes us have much more time, us or competition, much more time to dedicate on the purely human interactions.
Yes.
That is one side, or I would say the main consequence of AI is we will become even more humans, in a philosophical term than what we were used to do.
I think that is a super point.
With Industrial Revolution, we had this, work that depended on power, individual power. Now we call that kind of work inhuman. So not far away in the future, we will call this, gathering of information, processing and making a briefing inhuman, because AI will do it for us and we will be dedicated to the human touch.
It's such a great point, but also I think it's also a red flag for us to be aware of with AI. And we mentioned this part earlier, which was not to, make things too generic or, automated. By all means, use the AI to do the research, to do the pricing, but don't use the AI to write you the email or write you the LinkedIn message. Personalize it, make it in your own voice, because I don't think it's still good enough to do that. And people, as you say, deal with people, don't they? Not machines buying from machines. We're not quite there yet, hopefully.
And I would add, salespeople have a lot to say. That's not new. Sometimes I receive messages and they brag about they have been talking to this and that other company that, by the way, usually are 10 times at least the size of the one I am in. So it's like bragging about how many girls I have been, but now I'm writing to you, if you know what I mean. And that to me is not only disrespectful, but it creates a barrier. And it's like, I'm talking to so many other companies, but I'm writing to you today. What about we change that and we say something like, we are developing expertise area focused on your industry.
Brilliant.
And we would really like your input into that.
Brilliant.
Because most often, B2B sales, it's not off-the-shelf product that we know, and we just ship, but it's something that can be co-created. And that, of course, it depends on the industry. But sometimes we really need our customers to tell us how we can best help them. So this idea that I'm talking to big guys, and I have a thing that you will love for sure. Do you have 30 minutes for me? Might play against you instead of doing, I really value your expertise. You have the right experience. Would you have 30 minutes or 10 minutes, for me?
Yeah.
So
great.
You bring up this is the kind of last thing I was thinking about touching on, because, we talked about email, LinkedIn, AI, using all these tools. And I agree with you. There's a softer way. I was always a soft sale. I was never the hard kind of sales rep. It was always soft. So there's a softer way to bring that in. But what you're getting to is another real key to warming up calls, which is referral. Yeah. Hey, I'm working with this company. Hey, this PI is introducing me, right? I understand where the rep's coming from when they're saying, hey, because they're trying to build their credibility through referral. And I will say referral in my career was the easiest way to warm anything up.
That's such a good point.
Working with this person, or, hey, Dr. So-and-so invited to, told me you may be interested, right? Again, based on your style, there's a softer way to do it. There's a way to look at the messaging. But I think you're really keying in on is just, just trying that referral and how that builds credibility and how that actually warms things up.
Yeah, great point. Pascal, were you good at getting referrals?
I can only agree with this. And I was thinking about the peer-to-peer, let's say, aspect that Manel mentioned earlier. And peer-to-peer is people to people. It's like using a network and of course referral. So it's very powerful because it makes you different from the others, because people can see that you are connected to someone they know or someone they have respect for or someone they worked with, whatever. Yeah. So then it bridges the people together, or at least some level of trust, although they don't know you yet.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I would always think about, who I could refer or mention when I contact someone during a call.
It's so important. It's something we do in our own business. We rely on people who give us repeat business, and people that refer us and recommend us to other people. So it's so important. And I don't know I think we picked it up on a course that somebody ran a couple of years ago, but a great sort of approach to this really is whenever a customer thanks you for something, thank you for sorting that out for me, Steve. Thank you for, your support there. Thanks for that bit of information. It's a great chance to say, you're welcome. I wonder if you could help me. Who else do you know that might need one of these? Who else do you know that uses these? It's a great opportunity to ask that question. So,
because having people that are your friends makes you attractive.
Absolutely.
It's not only business.
Yeah.
when you write a connection message in LinkedIn, it's always nice to reference we have a few connections in common.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that we have, there should be always place for that, because it means I am not completely unknown. And instead of we have been talking to this, and this other, which if you're really talking to and not just sending emails like the one you're sending to me now, you shouldn't have time because they are big enterprises, much more concrete, or even better, ask somebody from these companies that they know to make the connection.
Yeah, we're humans after all, right? So again, it's, we evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to be social creatures. Even as much as technology drives us away from that, this is our instinct. Our instinct is to kind of be familiar with people who are connected to other people that we are. And again, so Manel was bringing out about this is going to make us more human. It's being, again, that personalization, right? How do we humanize all of these kind of things to make, a cold call a little bit warmer? I love it. It's just pretty cool to hear.
Great stuff.
Insights in this.
Yeah.
So we've had a great conversation on this. Any final thoughts from each of you in terms of, how we can make those cold calls a bit warmer, how we can make those outreach calls a bit more effective? It'd be great if we could have one each from everybody. Do you want to start, Pascal?
Yeah. Probably something we didn't touch so far is that let's keep in mind that this is a cold call. So, people you contact, they have probably not such a long time. So please make sure that after you got the interest and you brought value, you make it short, so probably have a, 5 to 15 minutes conversation where you generate value, but you ask permission for the follow-up with a commitment for the next step. But don't make it too long, so otherwise you can limit the motivation of the customer, the prospect, to follow up with you.
So important. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One from you, Jane?
Yeah, I think sort of going right to the very beginning, that understanding of why are we reaching out to the people that we're reaching out to? Not a random list, but why are we wanting to reach out to this specific person or this group of people? Having a really good understanding, what they're doing, what it is that would be valuable for them to speak to us and for us to speak to them, and if they were to say to us, upon wanting to speak to us, if that was a face-to-face or an in-person conversation, what valid reason, if they said, give me a reason why, I should talk to you, do we know what that would be?
Great point.
Always make sure we have that.
It's not about us, it's about them. Absolutely. Yeah. Jonathan?
Steve, I'm going to go 2. Sorry.
It's okay.
First thing is just
buy one, get one free.
It's just preparation, right? You have to do the preparation. Find the personalization, the value add, the call to action. Just try to find a way to connect on those. And then to me, just the most successful thing that worked for me in my career was referrals, right? Yeah. How do we use our connections? How do we use the people that we know, the customers that we know, to enable to make something a little bit warmer?
Great points. And Manel, again, thank you for being with us today. Anything else from your experience and your role that you think you can add to anybody listening to this today? Yeah.
On top of the all good inputs we have had so far, I would say in my experience, and I'm thinking 3 different industries, always within human health, but different product situations, etc. The thing, the idea of cold calling has evolved enormously in the last 20 years. I mentioned it briefly before. A telephone is not what it used to be. A cold call is not and will not be in the future what it used to be. So I would say curiosity and ability to change and to set up from scratch in the industry you are, in the country you are, in the culture you are, etc. And I could give examples like what's WhatsApp in some countries, what's LinkedIn in some countries, and what's not. So be open to change and constant adaptability, because times change and technology usage change.
Great points. Great points. One for me would be really, no matter how much we can do all the great stuff we've talked about on this podcast, you still will have some significant amount of rejection and no's. And even if you have a great day like you did, Jane, 25%, that's an incredible success rate. You're still going to have 75% people that don't pick up. So the one for me would be, if you've had a morning cold calling and it's been a bit difficult and a bit frustrating, just remember the next call you make might be the one that opens up a fantastic opportunity. You don't know until you make that call. That was my last thought on that, really. So Guys.
And eat some chocolate to celebrate.
Eat some chocolate. Don't tell my dentist that. Yeah. Guys, thank you ever so much for being on the pod today. Thank you again, Manel, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. Come back and see us again.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Come back and see us again soon. If you have enjoyed today's episode, dear listener, don't forget to give us a review on Apple or Spotify or any other podcast app and let you leave a review. We really would appreciate a 5-star review. It does help us in lots of weird and wonderful ways, really. If you're interested in coming on the podcast, as Manel has today, then we'd also love to hear from you. If you're working in life science, lab, process, industrial type B2B sales, we'd love to hear from you. People are actually, doing the job right now. It's great to get that sort of voice from the industry on the pod. So we'd love to hear from you. And if you've got any ideas for other topics or things you'd like us to cover in the Luxury Choice podcast, we'd love to hear from you as well. We'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, happy selling, and we'll talk to you soon.